Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I want to talk about something that many of us have experienced, something that can leave us feeling small, invisible, or uncertain. It's the impact of loving or being loved by someone who only gives us part of their heart. It's important to first understand what wholehearted love really is. Wholehearted love is not about perfection or idealized romance. It's about vulnerability, trust, and presence. It's about being open enough to truly see each other for who we are and still choosing to show up with honesty, compassion, and connection. Wholehearted love is not simply an emotion. It is a practice, a way of showing up in the world and in relationships with authenticity and vulnerability. At its core, wholehearted love is about being fully present emotionally, mentally, and physically. It is the ability to embrace both your own imperfections and the imperfections of those you love. When you engage in wholehearted love, you are not hiding parts of yourself or keeping your heart guarded. Instead, you are willing to be seen in all your complexities, all your messiness, and all your beauty. True love, in this sense, is not about finding someone who completes you, but finding someone with whom you can grow, be real, and fully express who you are. It requires trust, not just trust in the other person, but trust in yourself, in your ability to love, and in your ability to stand firm in your own sense of self-worth. Wholehearted love challenges us to show up in relationships with an open heart, unafraid of the potential for hurt or disappointment. It asks us to embrace the possibility of vulnerability, knowing that it is through vulnerability that we create the deepest and most meaningful connections. This kind of love is not about perfection or living up to an ideal. It doesn't demand that we be flawless or that we fit into a mold of what love should look like. Instead, wholehearted love is grounded in acceptance of both ourselves and the people we love. It's about being able to see the other person's strengths, flaws, and everything in between, and still choosing to engage with them, to care for them, and to support their growth. It means loving them not because they are perfect, but because we recognize their inherent worth despite and sometimes because of their imperfections. In wholehearted love, there is no place for pretense. There's no space for showing up with a facade or pretending to be something you're not. It's about being real, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about opening yourself up to someone else and allowing them to see you for who you truly are without fear of judgment. The beauty of wholehearted love is that it does not seek to change the other person, but rather encourages both individuals to evolve into the fullest, truest versions of themselves. To love wholeheartedly also means embracing the vulnerability of being loved in return. It means accepting that at times love may feel uncertain or challenging. There will be moments of doubt, moments of misunderstanding, and moments when we feel exposed. But this vulnerability is not weakness, it's a testament to our courage. It's the willingness to risk being hurt in order to experience the depth and the connection that true love brings. We cannot love wholeheartedly without stepping into the unknown, without allowing ourselves to be fully seen, and without giving others the space to do the same. Wholehearted love is a transformative process. It does not happen overnight, and it requires work, patience, and commitment. It's about showing up every day with a heart open to giving and receiving love, even when it feels difficult or when life presents challenges. And through that process, we grow not just as individuals, but as a partnership, a team, a family. Love, when it is wholehearted, has the power to heal, to inspire, and to create something deeply meaningful and lasting. But it only works when both people are willing to show up fully, to be vulnerable, and to let go of the fears and walls that keep them from truly connecting with each other. Recognizing incomplete love can be one of the most difficult things to do, especially when we're emotionally invested in a relationship or when the affection we receive though partial still feels significant. Incomplete love often appears subtle at first. It doesn't necessarily involve outright neglect or malice. Rather, it shows up in the spaces between what is promised and what is delivered. It's in the moments when someone pulls away just when you need them most, or when their affection comes in bursts, leaving you guessing whether their feelings are real or fleeting. It's the love that feels conditional, the love that is given only when it suits the other person, or the love that feels like it's being offered from a distance but never fully given. At its core, incomplete love is love that lacks depth and consistency. It doesn't offer the emotional presence that creates safety and intimacy in a relationship. It can look like someone who's physically there but emotionally absent. They may be present in the room, but not in the conversation, only giving part of themselves or keeping things at a surface level. Incomplete love withholds parts of the heart, and in doing so prevents the relationship from growing into something real and lasting. It often creates a dynamic where one person is left longing for more attention, more affection, more commitment, while the other person gives just enough to keep the connection alive, but not enough to make it feel secure or dependable. It's important to understand that incomplete love is not the same as loving imperfectly. Imperfection in love is a natural part of human connection. We all have flaws, and love doesn't require perfection to be real. But incomplete love, by its very nature, is conditional and inconsistent. It can look like someone who is only available when it's convenient for them, or someone who expresses affection but does not follow through with the actions that match their words. This type of love might leave you feeling unsure, uncertain, and emotionally drained, because there's a disconnect between what's being said and what's being done. Sometimes incomplete love comes from fear or insecurity. The other person might be fully opening their heart, or they might hold back because they're not ready for the level of emotional investment that true love requires. This fear can manifest in ways that seem like love, but are really just defense mechanisms. They may push you away when things get too close or too intense, as a way of protecting themselves from getting hurt. But the result is still the same. You are left with a love that feels fragmented, that leaves you feeling as though you're not getting the fullness of what you deserve or need. This type of love can also be misleading, especially if you're someone who craves emotional connection and intimacy. The signs of incomplete love may be subtle enough to make you question whether it's truly love at all. You may start to make excuses for the other person's behavior or convince yourself that things will improve. But the problem with incomplete love is that it keeps you in a constant state of waiting, always wondering if the other person will truly commit or offer the kind of emotional presence that would allow the relationship to deepen. This kind of love keeps you in a holding pattern, always hoping, always giving, but never fully receiving in return. At times, incomplete love may also be a reflection of one person's inability or unwillingness to be vulnerable. True love requires emotional honesty, the ability to expose our hearts and our flaws without fear of judgment. But when someone is not willing to be vulnerable, they may show affection in ways that are safe but shallow. They may hold back from truly sharing their thoughts, their feelings, or their experiences, leading to a connection that feels like it's stuck in neutral. This kind of emotional distance can create a disconnection that makes it difficult to build trust or intimacy, because without vulnerability, love cannot be fully expressed. In the long run, incomplete love tends to leave both people feeling unfulfilled. For one person, it may feel like they're always reaching out, always trying harder to make the connection work, while the other person remains emotionally distant or hesitant. For the person who is withholding love, they may feel like they're protecting themselves from being hurt or taken advantage of, but the result is still the same, a relationship that never quite reaches its potential. It may even begin to erode the self-worth of the person who is not receiving the fullness of love, leading them to question whether they are worthy of the kind of love they truly desire. And yet, because of the way incomplete love is often disguised as something real, something that seems like love, but never quite becomes love. It can be difficult to recognize when we're stuck in a cycle of only receiving part of what we need. We may convince ourselves that this is all we deserve or that the other person will eventually change. But the truth is that love is meant to be whole, not half. When you're in a relationship where the love feels incomplete, it's a sign that something important is missing, whether it's the emotional availability of the other person, their willingness to be vulnerable, or their commitment to offering the kind of consistency that builds trust. Recognizing incomplete love requires us to be honest with ourselves about our needs and desires, to acknowledge when we're settling for less than what we truly deserve. It asks us to pay attention to the patterns in our relationships and to trust our own instincts when something feels off. The longer we allow ourselves to stay in a place where love is incomplete, the harder it becomes to break free from the cycle and move towards something that is whole and fulfilling. Incomplete love is a love that is only partial, a love that doesn't fully see or recognize the person you are. It's when someone offers affection or attention in fragmented pieces, just enough to keep you hooked, but not enough to make you feel whole or valued. Incomplete love keeps you in a state of uncertainty, where you never truly know where you stand or what your place is in the other person's heart. It leaves you guessing and questioning your worth because you're never quite sure if you are enough. The affection you receive feels conditional, as though it is being given on their terms, not out of genuine care for you as a person. This kind of love is often characterized by inconsistency. One day a person might shower you with attention, and the next day they are distant or emotionally unavailable. This unpredictability creates a sense of insecurity, where you can't help but wonder what you did wrong or what you need to change to get the same level of attention or affection again. It's a pattern that leaves you constantly striving for something that never feels quite within reach, leaving you feeling like you're always in a state of waiting, never truly experiencing the fulfillment that comes with being loved in a consistent and wholehearted way. What's more damaging about incomplete love is that it often causes you to doubt your own value. When someone can't fully commit to you, can't show up for you in the way you need, it can lead you to question if you're worthy of the love and care you're seeking. The more you accept this kind of love, the more you begin to internalize the message that you are only worth half of what you deserve. You start to believe that you should settle for less because this is all that's available, and you may convince yourself that it's enough. This belief that you don't deserve more can keep you trapped in relationships where you're never truly seen, heard, or appreciated for all that you are. The emotional toll of incomplete love is often subtle but profound. It can leave you feeling drained and depleted because you're constantly giving more than you're receiving. This imbalance creates an emotional exhaustion that takes away from your sense of self. You begin to lose touch with your own needs and desires because you are so focused on trying to meet the emotional needs of the other person, trying to earn their affection or approval. Over time, this self-sacrifice can erode your self-esteem and make it more difficult to recognize when you are deserving of a healthier, more fulfilling relationship. Incomplete love also stunts your growth, not just within the relationship, but as an individual. It's difficult to grow into the best version of yourself when you're constantly walking on eggshells, unsure of where you stand, or trying to decode mixed signals. Healthy relationships provide a foundation for both partners to explore, learn, and develop. But when love is only half given, it's like trying to plant a seed in rocky soil. It's hard to grow because the conditions aren't conducive to nourishment and stability. Incomplete love keeps you from being your fullest self, as you constantly have to adjust to the emotional availability of the other person rather than embracing who you truly are. Another danger of incomplete love is the potential for perpetuating unhealthy patterns. If we grow accustomed to receiving only half of the love we deserve, we may begin to believe that this is normal, that this is how love should feel. We may begin to repeat this cycle in future relationships, accepting only partial love because that's what we've learned to expect. Over time, this can lead to a cycle of emotional depletion, where we are stuck in relationships that don't honor us or help us grow. Each time we accept less than we deserve, we reinforce the idea that we are not worthy of whole, fulfilling love, which in turn keeps us from ever finding it. This cycle also affects our ability to give love freely and fully. If we've been on the receiving end of incomplete love, it becomes harder to trust and open up to others in the way that is required for deep, meaningful connection. We may fear rejection, fear that we will be given only parts of someone else's heart, just as we've been given only parts of theirs. This fear can prevent us from showing up fully in future relationships, keeping us trapped in a state of emotional limitation. The danger of half love is that it pulls you away from your own truth. It creates a disconnect between who you are and who you feel you order to be in order to be loved. When you're constantly striving to gain approval from someone who isn't offering you their whole heart, you begin to lose sight of your own worth. You stop believing in your own capacity to give and receive love freely, and you become more and more disconnected from your own needs, desires, and aspirations. This is the real harm of incomplete love. It robs you of your own sense of self, replacing it with uncertainty and a feeling of emptiness that never fully goes away. Incomplete love is a temporary fix, but it is not the real thing. It is a fleeting, conditional affection that leaves you wanting more, but never fully satisfying the deepest parts of who you are. It's the shadow of real love, a pale imitation that can never fill the void or offer the security and depth that you need. And while it might seem easier to accept or settle for, the long-term damage it causes to your emotional and mental well-being is far greater than the temporary comfort it offers. Self-worth and boundaries are two foundational pillars that support our emotional health and well-being. Our self-worth is the inherent value we assign to ourselves, the belief that we are deserving of love, respect, and care regardless of our mistakes, imperfections, or the judgments of others. It's the internal compass that helps us navigate relationships, career choices, and personal decisions. When we have a strong sense of self-worth, we are grounded in the understanding that we are enough just as we are. This foundation enables us to set boundaries that protect our emotional, physical, and mental health, allowing us to engage with the world in a way that honors who we are and what we need. Our boundaries are the lines we draw to protect ourselves from being overextended, disrespected, or mistreated. They are the emotional, mental, and sometimes physical limits we set in our relationships and interactions. Setting boundaries isn't about creating walls to keep people out. It's about creating a safe space where we can show up fully as ourselves without fear of being compromised or diminished by others. Boundaries are a form of self-care. They are a way of saying, this is what I need in order to feel safe, respected, and valued. When we have healthy boundaries, we are able to honor our own needs without guilt or shame. And we are also able to respect the needs of others in a balanced, compassionate way. The connection between self-worth and boundaries is profound. Our boundaries reflect how much we value ourselves and how willing we are to protect our emotional well-being. If we struggle with self-worth, we may have difficulty setting clear boundaries because we fear that establishing limits will push people away or make them think less of us. We might feel that by saying no, we're being selfish or unkind, but the truth is that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's a recognition that we are worthy of love and care, and we are deserving of relationships that honor who we are. When we don't value ourselves enough to set boundaries, we open ourselves up to being mistreated or taken for granted. We may end up feeling depleted, resentful, or emotionally overwhelmed because we haven't protected our own needs in favor of trying to please others. The process of building self-worth is often an ongoing journey. It's shaped by the messages we receive from others, from society, and from our own inner dialogue. If we have experienced rejection, criticism, or neglect, it can be easy to internalize these messages and start believing that we are not enough. Our self-worth becomes tethered to external validation, and we begin to seek approval from others to feel good about ourselves. This can lead us to tolerate unhealthy relationships, to ignore our own needs, and to feel like we are constantly falling short. But the path to strengthening self-worth involves shifting our focus inward, recognizing that our value does not come from how others see us, but from who we are at our core. It's about learning to appreciate ourselves, flaws and all, and giving ourselves permission to thrive on our own terms. When we start to recognize our worth, we begin to see that we are worthy of relationships where we are treated with respect, kindness, and consideration. This realization enables us to draw boundaries that protect our emotional energy, our time, and our peace of mind. We learn to say no when something doesn't align with our values or when we feel overwhelmed, and we do so without guilt. Boundaries become a way of maintaining our emotional balance. When we know who we are and what we stand for, we are less likely to let others overstep or demand more from us than we are willing to give. Instead of accommodating everyone else at the expense of our own needs, we create space for self-care and personal growth. Healthy boundaries are not always easy to establish, especially if we've spent years without them, or if we are accustomed to putting others first. It can be uncomfortable at first to assert ourselves, especially when we fear disappointing others or causing conflict. But boundaries are not about controlling others or being rigid. They are about communicating our needs clearly and standing firm in our right to protect our emotional and mental well-being. Setting boundaries requires us to trust that we have the right to prioritize our own needs without sacrificing our integrity or compassion. There is also a deep connection between self-worth and the way we allow others to treat us. If we don't believe that we are worthy of respect, we may tolerate mistreatment or settle for relationships that don't serve us. We might stay in situations where we're not valued, where our needs are dismissed, or where our emotional health is undermined. This can cause long-term damage, leaving us feeling unseen, unheard, and unimportant. When we have a strong sense of self-worth, we no longer tolerate behavior that diminishes us. We know that we are worthy of love, honesty, and reciprocity, and we stand by our right to receive that from the people in our lives. As we learn to value ourselves, we begin to see that setting boundaries is not only essential for our emotional survival, but is also a way of teaching others how to treat us. By honoring our own boundaries, we model self-respect and create an environment where mutual respect can flourish. Boundaries create space for healthy, balanced relationships where both parties feel valued and supported. When we are clear about what we need and communicate effectively, we invite others to do the same. This creates a foundation of trust and openness where each person feels seen and heard. In many ways, our boundaries are a reflection of how much we care for ourselves. They are a way of saying that we are worthy of love, care, and respect, and that we won't settle for less. When we protect our energy and emotions with healthy boundaries, we are able to show up as our authentic selves without compromising our needs or values. This allows us to engage with others from a place of strength and confidence, knowing that we are worthy of love just as we are. The more we nurture our sense of self-worth and set clear boundaries, the more we invite love and connection that is rooted in mutual respect, care, and understanding. Fear plays a significant and often underestimated role in love, shaping the way we connect, the way we protect ourselves, and the way we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Love, in its purest form, asks for openness, authenticity, and a willingness to take risks. But these very qualities can trigger fear, making us question our decisions, second-guess our feelings, and hold back parts of ourselves that could lead to a deeper connection. Fear often arises when we face the unknowns of love, the uncertainties about whether we will be accepted, whether our love will be returned, or whether we will ultimately be hurt. Fear can show up in many forms within love. Sometimes it manifests as the fear of rejection, the fear that despite all our efforts, we may not be worthy of the love we desire. This fear keeps us from fully expressing our feelings, holding us back from sharing our hearts, because we fear that doing so will expose us to vulnerability. We might convince ourselves that it's safer to play it cool, to withhold a part of ourselves, because putting our whole heart on the line feels like too much of a gamble. This fear creates a barrier between us and the full experience of love as we hesitate to give ourselves completely out of fear of not receiving the same in return. The more we hold back, the less we allow ourselves to experience the depth of connection that true love has to offer. Another manifestation of fear in love is the fear of abandonment. This is the deep-seated worry that no matter how much we invest, the people we love will eventually leave us. Whether it's from past experiences of loss, rejection, or emotional neglect, this fear can prevent us from truly committing to a relationship, as we are always bracing ourselves for the possibility of being left behind. The fear of abandonment can cause us to cling too tightly to our partners, trying to control the situation in an attempt to stave off the pain of possible loss. On the other hand, it can also cause us to distance ourselves emotionally, keeping others at arm's length so we don't have to face the potential heartbreak that comes with a deep connection. In both cases, the fear prevents us from fully embracing love because we are constantly guarding our hearts against the possibility of pain. Fear can also take the form of insecurity within ourselves, where we question our worthiness of love. We may fear that we are not enough, that we don't have enough to offer, that we are too damaged, too flawed, or too complicated to be loved unconditionally. This insecurity often leads to self-doubt, and when we doubt ourselves, we are less likely to believe that we deserve to be loved freely and completely. This lack of self-assurance manifests in our relationships as we struggle to accept love from others. We push away affection, downplay compliments, or even sabotage relationships because we believe we don't deserve the love that's being offered. The fear of not being enough can hold us back from accepting and fully participating in love, leaving us stuck in a cycle of self-criticism and emotional distance. At the same time, fear of love itself can stem from past emotional wounds. If we've been hurt in the past, whether through betrayal, rejection, or unhealed trauma, the fear of opening our hearts again can feel overwhelming. The scars from previous experiences may make us afraid to trust, to allow someone new into our lives, or to love as fully as we once did. We may fear that the same pain will resurface, that history will repeat itself, or that we will be hurt once again. This fear can make us resistant to entering new relationships or prevent us from nurturing the love we currently have. We become hypervigilant, overanalyzing every action and word, trying to anticipate potential danger rather than simply allowing ourselves to experience love with an open heart. Fear can also shape the way we love others. When we are afraid, we may try to control the relationship or the people in our lives in an effort to keep ourselves safe from emotional harm. We may impose unrealistic expectations, demanding that our partners meet every need, or we may become possessive, thinking that if we hold on tight enough, we can prevent them from leaving. This kind of fear-driven behavior ultimately undermines the trust and intimacy required for a healthy, loving relationship. It creates a dynamic where control replaces connection, and the love we offer is conditional, driven by the need to avoid vulnerability or pain. In these situations, love becomes more about self-protection and self-expression, and the fear of losing someone can lead to the very thing we fear most: emotional distance, or even the end of the relationship. Despite the role fear plays in love, it is also a force that can reveal the depth of our emotions and our capacity for growth. Fear is often a sign that we are on the verge of something important, something that matters to us deeply. It shows us where we are vulnerable, where we are invested, and where we are willing to take risks. When we acknowledge our fear instead of allowing it to control us, we can begin to use it as a guide to show us where we need to heal, where we need to grow, and where we need to open ourselves to new possibilities. Fear can help us understand our own limits and boundaries, teaching us how to protect ourselves in healthy ways while still being open to love. Ultimately, love and fear coexist, and the challenge is not to eliminate fear, but to learn how to navigate. The key is not to let fear hold us back from experiencing the full richness of love, but to use it as an opportunity for growth, vulnerability, and deeper connection. By acknowledging our fears and allowing ourselves to feel them without letting them dictate our actions, we create space for love to flourish. We learn that love is not about being fearless, but about showing up fully, even in the face of fear, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to trust, and to embrace the full spectrum of human emotion. When we face our fears in love, we create deeper, more meaningful relationships built on authenticity, trust, and the courage to love fully, despite the risk of pain. Wholeheartedness is the ability to show up fully in our relationships, in our work, and in our lives without holding back or hiding parts of who we are. It's the practice of being all in, fully present, and deeply engaged with a heart that is open and honest. When we live wholeheartedly, we are not trying to be someone we are not. We are not holding pieces of ourselves in reserve, afraid of what might happen if we give too much. Instead, we offer our whole selves, knowing that in doing so, we invite others to do the same. Wholeheartedness is a radical act of self-trust. It's the willingness to be vulnerable, to show our true selves, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with being deeply seen and loved. When we approach life with wholeheartedness, we embrace both the light and the shadow within us. We understand that to be truly human is to be complex, messy, and imperfect. Wholeheartedness isn't about perfection. It's about showing up as we are, without trying to fit into an idealized version of ourselves or hide the parts of us that we may be ashamed of. It's about accepting our flaws, mistakes, and fears, and recognizing that these parts of ourselves don't make us unworthy, they make us real. By accepting and embracing our full range of experiences, we free ourselves from the constraints of self-judgment and comparison, and we allow ourselves to be more open to love, connection, and growth. One of the greatest gifts of wholeheartedness is the ability to create deep, authentic connections. When we show up with our whole hearts, we invite others to do the same. We set the stage for relationships that are grounded in trust, vulnerability, and mutual respect. We no longer have to pretend, perform, or hide parts of ourselves in fear of rejection or judgment. Instead, we can be honest about who we are, what we need, and what we hope for, knowing that the people who truly care about us will embrace us as we are. In relationships that are rooted in wholeheartedness, there is space for both individuals to grow and evolve, knowing that they are fully supported and accepted along the way. Wholeheartedness also brings a sense of freedom that comes from living in alignment with our values, our desires, and our truth. When we live wholeheartedly, we are no longer bound by fear, shame, or societal expectations. We make choices based on what feels right for us rather than what we think we should do or what others expect of us. This freedom allows us to take risks, to try new things, and to step outside of our comfort zones in pursuit of growth and self-discovery. Wholeheartedness isn't about playing it safe, it's about embracing life in its fullness, with all of its challenges, opportunities, and uncertainties. It's about saying yes to the unknown, knowing that we have the resilience and courage to face whatever comes our way. However, embracing wholeheartedness requires a deep sense of self-compassion. It requires us to be gentle with ourselves, to recognize that we are worthy of love and care, even when we stumble or fall short of our own expectations. Wholeheartedness is not about being constantly happy or positive. It's about being real with ourselves in both our moments of strength and our moments of struggle. It's about understanding that our worth is not determined by our successes or failures, but by the fact that we are human and deserving of love just as we are. Self-compassion allows us to show up wholeheartedly in our lives without the fear of being judged or rejected for our imperfections. It allows us to embrace ourselves as we are, knowing that we are enough regardless of how we feel or what we accomplish. The power of wholeheartedness also lies in its ability to create lasting impact. When we are fully engaged in our lives, when we show up with intention and purpose, we create ripples that extend far beyond ourselves. Our authenticity, our vulnerability, and our openness inspire others to live in the same way. By being true to ourselves, we encourage others to do the same. Wholeheartedness is contagious. It inspires others to shed their own masks, to be more honest and real, and to live with a deeper sense of connection and purpose. In this way, living wholeheartedly doesn't just transform our own lives, it has the potential to transform the lives of those around us, creating a culture of authenticity, compassion, and support. At the core of wholeheartedness is the belief that we are worthy of living fully and completely. This belief allows us to step into the world with confidence, knowing that we have something valuable to offer and that we deserve to experience life to its fullest. When we are wholehearted, we are not waiting for permission or validation from others. We are claiming our right to live authentically and courageously. We are choosing to embrace life with all its messiness and beauty and to engage with it in a way that is true to who we are. Living wholeheartedly also means embracing the idea that we are always in process. We are not fixed or static beings. We are constantly evolving, growing, and learning. Wholeheartedness allows us to be open to this process of change without fear of losing ourselves or being incomplete. It reminds us that growth is not a linear path. It is a journey full of twists and turns, challenges and triumphs. Wholeheartedness allows us to approach this journey with grace, knowing that we are worthy of every experience, every lesson, and every opportunity that comes our way. It is the unwavering belief that we are enough just as we are and that we are capable of becoming even more than we ever imagined. In conclusion, wholeheartedness is the key to living a life of deep connection, authenticity, and fulfillment. It requires us to embrace both our strengths and our vulnerabilities, showing up fully in our relationships and our work without fear of judgment or rejection. It's about living with intention, accepting ourselves as we are, and trusting that our worth is not defined by perfection, but by our capacity to love, grow, and learn. When we choose to live wholeheartedly, we invite others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of compassion, understanding, and true connection in the world around us. It is through wholehearted living that we experience the depth and richness of life, finding meaning in the messiness, beauty, and uncertainty that make us human. So let us commit to showing up with our whole hearts, knowing that by doing so, we honor ourselves, the people we love, and the lives we are meant to lead. Another facet of isolation caused by social expectations is the fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness in many cultures, particularly in societies that prioritize individual achievement and success. To admit that we are struggling, that we feel lonely or disconnected, or that we do not have everything figured out is often met with judgment or a lack of understanding. As a result, many people choose to keep their struggles to themselves, hiding behind the facade of society demands. The more we hide our true feelings and experiences, the more isolated we become. We may convince ourselves that no one else could possibly understand what we are going through, leading us to retreat further into ourselves. Ironically, it is in the very act of opening up and being vulnerable that we can begin to bridge the gap between ourselves and others. However, the societal pressures that encourage us to present a perfect image of ourselves can make this kind of openness feel nearly impossible. The relationship between social expectations and isolation is cyclical. The more we internalize societal pressures and hide our true selves, the more isolated we become, and the more isolated we feel. The stronger the grip of social expectations becomes. It is a cycle that feeds itself, keeping us trapped in a state of perpetual self-judgment and disconnection. Breaking free from this cycle requires immense courage. It involves challenging the norms that have been ingrained in us, questioning the validity of the standards we are asked to live up to, and learning to embrace our uniqueness. We must learn to accept ourselves as we are, without the need for approval or validation from outside sources. This process of self-acceptance is not easy, especially when the world around us is constantly reinforcing the idea that we must be something else to belong. Ultimately, social expectations and isolation are intimately connected. The pressure to conform can lead to a profound sense of loneliness as we suppress our true selves in order to fit into predefined molds. The fear of judgment, rejection, and exclusion creates emotional barriers that separate us from others, even when we are surrounded by people. To heal from this isolation requires a radical shift in acceptance that we are enough as we are, and that our worth is not contingent upon meeting societal standards. It requires us to embrace vulnerability, to open ourselves up to connection, and to break free from the chains of comparison and perfection. Only then can we begin to build authentic relationships and find a true sense of belonging, not by conforming, but by fully embracing who we are. The power of solitude is often misunderstood in a world that glorifies constant connection and activity. We live in a time where distractions are endless, and the idea of being alone with ourselves can seem unsettling, even intimidating. Solitude, however, holds a unique and transformative power when embraced with intention and openness. It is in moments of solitude that we have the opportunity to reconnect with our true selves, to reflect deeply, and to nurture our personal growth. While social interaction is essential for our well-being, the quiet and stillness of being alone can offer a space for deep introspection and self-discovery that is often difficult to access in the busyness of everyday life. When we spend time in solitude, we are able to step away from the noise and demands of the outside world. It is in these moments of quiet that we can truly listen to our own thoughts, feelings, and desires without the influence or judgments of others. The constant barrage of external expectations, whether from family, friends, or society, can cloud our own sense of self. In solitude, however, we have the freedom to explore who we are beyond the roles and labels that others may assign to us. This space allows us to tune into our authentic selves and ask important questions. What do I truly want? What are my passions and values? What parts of me have I been neglecting or suppressing? In this way, solitude becomes a form of self-care, a chance to reconnect with our deepest desires and truths. The power of solitude also lies in its ability to cultivate self-awareness. In our everyday lives, we are often so busy meeting the needs of others and managing external responsibilities that we forget to check in with ourselves. Solitude provides an opportunity to pause, to reflect on our experiences, and to gain insight into our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It offers a space for us to assess our personal growth, to recognize patterns in our thinking or actions that may no longer serve us, and to make conscious decisions about how we want to evolve. When we are alone, we are free from distractions, and we can explore our inner world with honesty and clarity. This self-awareness is the foundation of personal growth, as it allows us to recognize areas where we need to heal, develop, or challenge ourselves in new ways. Personal growth often requires discomfort and reflection. Solitude can be a fertile ground for growth because it forces us to confront aspects of ourselves that we might otherwise avoid. In the quiet, we may encounter feelings of loneliness, fear, or doubt, emotions that are often masked by our busy lives. These feelings, however, are not necessarily negative. They can serve as valuable teachers. By sitting with our discomfort and allowing ourselves to fully experience these emotions, we can gain insights into our inner struggles and begin to heal. Solitude provides us with the space to process our pain, grief, and uncertainty, enabling us to grow stronger and more resilient in the face of life's challenges. It is through these moments of vulnerability that we develop a deeper understanding of who we are and what we are capable of. Moreover, solitude can serve as a powerful tool for creativity and innovation. When we are constantly surrounded by others and engaged in constant activity, our minds can become cluttered with external stimuli, making it difficult to focus or think clearly. In solitude, however, we can access a level of creativity and clarity that might not be possible in a noisy or crowded environment. Without the influence of others' ideas or opinions, we are free to explore our own thoughts, to experiment with new ideas, and to discover solutions to problems that we may not have considered before. The stillness of solitude allows us to tap into a deeper well of creativity and insight, enabling us to approach challenges from fresh perspectives and to develop new ways of thinking. The ability to be comfortable in solitude is also an essential aspect of emotional maturity. It is easy to seek external validation or comfort when we are feeling insecure or uncertain, but the ability to sit with our emotions without relying on others for reassurance is a powerful sign of emotional strength. Solitude teaches us to cultivate self-sufficiency, to rely on our own inner resources for comfort and guidance. In solitude, we learn to trust ourselves and our instincts and to find peace within rather than seeking it outside of ourselves. This emotional independence fosters a deep sense of self-esteem and self-respect as we recognize that we are capable of navigating life's challenges on our own terms. There's also a profound sense of freedom that comes with solitude. In the company of others, we often feel the weight of social expectations, the need to conform, or the desire to please. These external pressures can limit our freedom to be our true selves. In solitude, however, we are liberated from these constraints. We are free to explore our interests, passions, and desires without judgment or fear of rejection. This freedom allows us to reconnect with parts of ourselves that we may have neglected in the hustle and bustle of daily life. It is in solitude that we can rediscover our own voice, our own preferences, and our own sense of purpose. This sense of autonomy and liberation is essential for personal growth as it empowers us to live authentically and to make choices that align with our deepest values. Solitude is also an opportunity for spiritual growth and connection. For many, the time spent alone offers a chance to deepen their connection to a higher power, the universe, or their own sense of purpose. It is in these quiet moments that we can reflect on the mysteries of life, engage in spiritual practices, and seek guidance from within. Whether through meditation, prayer, or simply being present with ourselves, solitude can help us cultivate a sense of inner peace and connectedness that is often difficult to achieve in the midst of daily distractions. It is through solitude that we are able to hear the whispers of our intuition and align ourselves with a greater sense of meaning and direction in life. While solitude is often seen as a time for reflection and self-care, it also provides us with the opportunity to develop a deeper sense of compassion and empathy. When we spend time alone, we are forced to confront our own flaws, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities. This self-compassion can then extend to others as we develop a greater understanding of what it means to be human. Our own struggles and growth enable us to empathize with the challenges of others, and the solitude that we experience becomes a source of connection rather than isolation. In this way, solitude not only fosters personal growth, but also strengthens our relationships with others by deepening our capacity for understanding and support. It is important to recognize that solitude is not synonymous with loneliness. While loneliness can be a painful experience characterized by feelings of isolation and disconnection, solitude is a conscious choice to spend time with oneself in a nurturing and restorative way. Solitude does not have to be a negative or isolating experience. Rather, it can be a powerful act of self-care and self-discovery. It is in these moments of solitude that we are given the opportunity to recharge, to reconnect with our inner selves and to grow into the people we are meant to become. As we embrace solitude, we begin to realize that personal growth is not a linear process. It is a journey that requires patience, self-compassion, and the willingness to face discomfort and uncertainty. Solitude provides the space for us to take the time we need to heal, reflect, and grow without the pressure of external expectations or timelines. It is in this space that we can cultivate the clarity, creativity, and emotional strength needed to navigate life's challenges and embrace new opportunities. Through solitude, we not only discover who we are, but also who we are capable of becoming, allowing us to step into our full potential and live more authentic, fulfilled lives. In the end, the power of solitude lies not in its ability to isolate us, but in its ability to reconnect us with who we truly are. In the quiet moments, we find space for introspection, healing, and growth. We come face to face with our innermost thoughts, desires, and fears, and we discover the strength to face them without judgment. Solitude offers us the freedom to embrace our authentic selves, to cultivate creativity, and to deepen our emotional resilience. It is in this space that we find clarity and the courage to evolve into the people we are meant to be. Though the world around us may encourage constant connection and activity, it is in solitude that we discover the true essence of who we are, unfiltered and untethered by external expectations. It is a journey that requires trust in ourselves, patience with our process, and a deep sense of self-compassion. Through solitude, we are not merely alone, we are with ourselves, fully present and deeply connected to our own potential for growth. And as we continue to embrace these moments of stillness, we unlock the door to greater self-awareness, compassion, and empowerment, creating the foundation for a life lived authentically, boldly, and fully.